Council, March 22nd, 2022 is called to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Present.
Counselor Caraviallo.
Present.
Counselor Collins.
Present.
Counselor Knight. Counselor Scarpelli. Counselor Singh, I see him online somewhere.
Okay.
Counselor Singh. He's present. I see him. President Morrell.
Present.
Okay.
Brewer County Councilor Singh is present.
Counselor
Okay.
Singh, I see online. I just have
I can
not
see
heard,
him,
I
right.
have not heard from him. I'm going to mark him as present since I can see him.
Okay, 7 present, 0 absent. The meeting is called to order. Please rise and salute the flag. Salute the flag.
United States of America. Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Hearing 20-568, legal notice, City of Medford, Massachusetts, Medford City Council, Chapter 94 zoning. The Medford City Council shall conduct a public hearing in the Howard F. Alden Chambers at Medford City Hall, 85 George P. Hassett Drive, Medford, and via Zoom on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. The Zoom link to be posted no later than Friday, March 18th, 2022, to consider the recommendations of the Community Development Board and to take the following actions with regard to the zoning ordinance. Delete existing ordinance. The intent is to delete the entire existing ordinance. Article 1 in general, and replace with the proposed ordinance. The intent is to replace the entire existing ordinance. Section 1, purpose and authority.
Madam President, motion to waive the reading and have a brief synopsis from our legal counsel on the topic, please.
On the motion from Councilor Knight to waive the reading, second by Councilor Caraviallo with a brief synopsis from our legal counsel. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Read it and you withdraw your motion. Councilor. All right, so we'll read it and then we'll also get a synopsis. Okay, resuming. Article 2, administration and enforcement. Article 3, reserved. Article 4, use regulations. Article 5, signs. Article 6, site plan review. Article 7, development linkage fees. Article 8, vacant and foreclosing properties. Article 9, inclusionary housing. And then the zoning map. So to replace with the proposed ordinance, the intent is to replace the entire existing ordinance with section 1.0, purpose and authority. Section 2.0, districts. Section 3.0, use regulations. Section 4.0, dimensional regulations. Section 5.0, non-conforming uses and structures. Section 6.0, general regulations. Section 7.0, special regulations. Section 8.0, special residential regulations. Section 9.0, special district regulations. Section 10.0, development linkage fees. Section 11.0, administration and enforcement. Section 12.0, definitions, and the zoning map dated asterisks. The most recent version of the document is available for view in the city clerk's office and online at the Google Drive account listed. Call 781-393-2425 for any accommodations or aids. By order of the Medford City Council, signed Adam L. Hurtubise. So Attorney Bobrowski, could you also provide us with a brief synopsis of what we're looking at here?
Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, council members. I'm happy to do so. I want to thank, before I begin, the city clerk, Alicia Hunt, and Amanda Centrella for providing logistical support and helping me to parse through the city council minutes that reviewed Community Development Board recommendations. I wanted to be sure that I understood and got those recommendations correctly embedded into the zoning. And I'm glad to say that CDB staff gave me the green light last week, and I was happy to turn it in a day or two early. What we've done is essentially gone through the 2 minutes of the city council at which the CDB recommendations were considered. I believe that there were something on the order of 74 recommendations. Some were very simple typographical pickups that we corrected. Others were a bit more complex, but those have now all been included in the ordinance. I made a track change version of the ordinance so that you could see the changes as they were embedded. I also provided a clean version of the ordinance. There were also changes made to the use table. There is both a tracked version of the use table and a clean version of the use table. The dimensional table only had 2 changes, so there's no tracked version, there is a clean version. And those are the 3 documents that you have.
Thank you, Attorney Bobrowski. As this is a hearing, we will open the hearing for those in favor of the paper. Is there anyone who would like to speak who is in favor of the paper, either online or in the chambers? You can use the raise hand function, otherwise I can also scan through. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of this paper? Alicia Hunt, if you'd like to speak.
President, counselors, we just wanted to thank you for all the hard work on this recodification, that it was a lot of effort that went into it by the council. We were very pleased to see it. We do believe that this new version of the zoning will be easier to work with and easier to understand. We just wanted to voice our support for the changes that the council has seen fit to put forward with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hunt. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this paper? Seeing and hearing none, this portion of the hearing is closed. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this paper, either on Zoom or in the chambers? A moment. People can either raise their virtual hand or just flag me down on video. Seeing and hearing none, this portion of the hearing is closed. Any discussion from the council?
Madam President,
Councilor Knight.
I'm very grateful that we finally gotten to this point. This is something that I recall taking up, I believe, in my second term as a member of the council. This evening, there's someone that's not a member of this body anymore who deserves credit for getting us this far, and that's John Falco. Madam President, John really made zoning a priority during his time as the president. John worked very hard in bringing us to where we are to help us secure Mr. Bobrowski and his leadership to get us to this point. We've met probably for close to 60 hours as a body on this topic over the course of 24 months to get us to where we are today. It's been a very open and deliberate process. It's been very transparent. There have been, I believe, 9 draft documents that have circulated among the council that have all been vetted through public meetings. We've had the duly required public hearing with Community Development Board. Notices have been posted. The Community Development Board had an opportunity to vet this motion as well. And they came back with a series of over 70 recommendations that the council took up in a meeting, went through each and every one of them, addressed each and every one of them. And we finally came up with this document right here, Madam President. This is a document I'm very proud of. I think that this body should be very proud of this document. And in this young stage in our term, this work product that we're putting out so far is something that's great. And I support this measure that's before us wholeheartedly, and I move for approval.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. Any further discussion on the councilor? Councilor Collins. Okay. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank everyone who's put so much work into this process. I've lost count of the number of meetings. I think maybe 15, 16, somewhere in there, just of the council, not including many meetings of the Community Development Board. I echo Councilor Knight's comments about the significance of this change and bringing us into the modern day, and hopefully making a lot clearer for everybody involved what can happen and can't happen as regards our zoning. And I also see this as a foundation for moving forward, a way for us to much more easily make the tweaks and changes that we need as we are growing as a city, both to protect our community and to grow our community. And I think that's going to be a lot easier now, especially with this group of people who have read so much and done so much and looked so much into this code. Definitely much more knowledgeable about zoning now than I was 3 years ago. So thank you all for your work on this, and I'm definitely supporting our work tonight and voting to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I echo the sentiments from my colleagues, but again, Council Falco, former Council Falco president, and Council Marks, I know spent a lot of time with this initiative, and I'm also very proud of it. And I think that when the administration allows this body to look at representation like Attorney Bobrowski and having his leadership, I don't think we've been informed of other attorneys, but to work with Mr. Bobrowski and his wealth of knowledge and the pieces that he shares from other communities that he has fought with and changed so many guidelines. And I think that without him, I don't know if it would have been I can't say easy because it's been 2 years, but he really made it very educational, and we appreciate his leadership with this process, and we look forward to moving this forward. So thank you, Madam President.
My colleagues have put it really well, and I just wanted to say I think this is one of the things that shows that to make the change that we want to see in our community. We even in this session, we've had many meetings about these. I know before our session of the city council, the council's been working hard on this. Different community boards have been working hard on this. Maybe activists, experts have hard to see. I'm proud that we are taking this on to be able to vote on something like this. I also see this as an opportunity for us to, as I think Councillor Bears alluded to, move forward with more, more ideas and to open the conversation up about how we can develop our city so that everyone wins. How can we make Medford work for all of us? And so this, I think, this is a crucial piece to that puzzle. It's an important first step, right? It's an important step to get us all on the same page, to bring our code to the modern day, to give clarity to everyone. And so we need that platform for us to move forward, and for us to have those discussions about new ideas that we might or might not take up. But we need this first step first. So I'm happy to be voting for this.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, this is a document I'm proud to be part of. 3 different presidents worked on this, 9 city councils worked on this, and we all stayed unified on this, and we worked for a common goal, and I think we did a real good job. Took some time, and this is the first part of our zoning, and look forward to passing this evening and moving forward to the next phase of this. So thank everybody for all the time everybody put in, and thank you, John Falco, who's not here. He was the original starter of this, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carviallo. And for the discussion in the council, if I could, just for a moment from the chair, I want to echo my fellow councillors and thanking former Councillor Falco for really getting us to this point where we could carry it across the finish line in this term. We had countless meetings on this, all public meetings, and I think perhaps too often it's highlighted where we disagree in this body. But if you attended any of these meetings, it was all of us digging our heels in and doing the work and having the important discussions and representing the interests of the city and finding common ground. That happened among the council. It happened as we worked with the community development board, and it happened as we had the department heads come in and have discussions so that we could get a document that I think we're all proud of, that really represents the work of the council. We can get mired in lots of things, but zoning is a major piece of the council and our responsibility. And I think this is something that we're all proud of, and that we've all been able to have our hands on it and represent different points of view and move Medford forward, and also act, as many have said, as a first step to the next thing. So I'm hoping that the administration was able to empower us with Attorney Bobrowski, and I hope that they will empower us and fund us to continue this work because this is important work and this is what we've just begun. Vice President Barris.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for your comments. I wholeheartedly agree. When Councilor Marks has mentioned, it reminded me that we should thank all the residents who participated in this process. I think he would be loudly voicing that. We had a lot of residents involved in our committee of the whole meetings, raising questions, some of whom are here tonight. And if you watched any of those community development board meetings, those were pretty resident focused as well. There were a lot of different residents from a lot of parts of the city finding typos and looking for commas and providing, really substantive and helpful advice on zoning and planning and development. So just wanted to add that to the record tonight before we vote. Thank you.
Vice President Barris. Councilor Carviallo.
Thank you. I neglected to thank Attorney Bobrowski for his work. I mean, he's probably one of the finest legal minds in the state on this issue, and he made it, a lot easier than it looks. But again, I just want to thank him. I say the man is a wealth of knowledge, and I hope we're able to bring him back for the phase 2 of this. So thank you, Martin, for your work.
Thank you, Councilor Carviallo. Any comments from the public, either in the chambers or on Zoom? Raise your hand. Not seeing. I'll give one more moment if anyone else would like to comment on the paper before us. Okay. Seeing none, on the motion of Councilor Knight for approval to be ordained, seconded by Councilor Collins. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
To be ordained. Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Councilor Carviallo.
Yes.
Councilor Collins.
Yes.
Councilor Knight.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli. Yes. Councilor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. The motion passes. Motions, orders, and resolutions. 22-073. This is for me unless any councilors object. I can just read from the chair. Moving forward. Offered by President Morrell. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council approve and transmit to the general court for their consideration the following home rule petition as originally introduced by the mayor and as amended by the City Council and Committee of the Whole. An act authorizing the election of a charter commission in the city of Medford. Be enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in general court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1. Notwithstanding the provisions of Chapter 43B of the general laws or the provisions of any general law, special law, or regulation to the contrary, the City of Medford City Council shall, at the first regular city election or earlier occurring special election held on or after the 60th day following the effective date of this act, by order provide for election of a 9-member charter commission. Section 2, the charter commission shall be composed of 1 commissioner elected from each of the 8 wards of the city and 1 elected at large. In the event of a charter commissioner elected to represent a particular ward should move within the city during their term of office, they may continue to serve as the representative from the ward from which they were elected. The vacancy created by any commissioner who moves from the city during their term of office or who resigns may be filled by majority vote of the entire commission. Section 3. Other than as set forth herein, the provisions of Chapter 43B of the general laws shall be applicable to the nomination and election of charter commissioners and to the duties and responsibilities of the city and the charter commission elected hereunder. Section 4. This act shall take effect upon its passage. As amended by the City Council and Committee of the Whole, President Morrell moved to amend the language of the petition to fill any vacancy on the Charter Commission by replacing that member with the person who received the next highest number of votes for that position on the commission. Councilor Collins second. Approved on a roll call vote of 6 in favor and Councilor Carviallo abstaining because he had just arrived. Is there any discussion from the council on this paper? Vice President Barris.
Thank you, Madam President. Just that I believe we should reflect the language of the amendment that you just read in the actual language of the petition before it is submitted. And basing that language on the language in the city charter of the city of Medford, that would be a motioning to amend this to replace at the end of section 2, the words may be filled by majority vote of the entire commission. That would be struck. and would be replaced with shall be filled by that defeated candidate who received the highest number of votes for that specific seat and is eligible and willing to serve.
Can I have that?
Sure.
Can you transmit that to me in some way?
Yep.
So I can have. the
And
amendment?
that's straight from the city charter.
Okay.
Although it takes out the word city council.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Any further discussion from the council? Any members of the public who would like to speak on this paper? Come up to the podium. I don't see any hands on Zoom at the moment, so. Name and address for the record, please.
Milva McDonald, 61 Monument Street.
Okay.
Every city has the right to charter review. You've heard it before, and you'll hear it again. The charter, the instrument that dictates how our city government is structured and implemented, is a living document. Wisdom and smart governance would dictate periodic review. Yet Medford's charter has not been looked at for more than 3 decades. That means the last review happened before my 29 years as a resident, and has been pointed out here, before more than one member of this council was even born. Charter review has been attempted several times. For at least 2 of those times, the barrier has come from you, the city council, and you are the body that today will determine the fate of another home rule petition to initiate charter review. I started joining some of my fellow residents a few months ago to organize around the issue. We contacted each of you to hear your thoughts. To those of you who met and talked with us, thank you for the productive discussions and the chance to listen to your concerns. Some of you felt the elected Charter Review Commission outlined in this paper might not be representative of all the neighborhoods in our city. We responded to your specific asks, and we got ward representation applied to this petition. Now, some of you who expressed support have flip-flopped for reasons ranging from complaints about social media comments to declarations that charter review should come from the people. First, I would like to say, councilors, you are the people. You are our elected officials, and we have spoken to you on this. I have here a letter, which I ask to be entered into the record, endorsed by 227 residents, urging you to vote yes on this paper. In recent years, nearly 5,000 people have signed a petition to get a Charter Review Commission on the ballot. That's well over 50% of the entire number of votes each of you received in the last election, and in many cases, it's closer to 100%. In addition, this paper will put candidates from each ward, as some of you requested, on the ballot to be elected by the people to a Charter Review Commission that will engage the community in its 18-month process. Recommendations for modifications to the charter, if any, would go on the ballot before they could be implemented. In light of all this, how can you argue that this process would not come from the people? I ask that you honor the support you expressed to us and vote in favor of this paper. While it is not the only route to charter review, it is the most expeditious in the current moment, and it offers you a chance to respond to your constituents and show that you value their concerns and you value their civic engagement. For what better way to promote civic engagement than inviting every resident of this city to join in reviewing how their city government works? We are determined to partake of that opportunity, indeed of that right. Collecting signatures is not the only other alternative available. We are exploring all of them. And if this petition fails, we will pursue them as swiftly and as transparently as possible. Every city has the right to a review, and we will have ours. It is up to you to decide whether you will help to honor that right in this moment or choose to delay it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Any more further comment, either on Zoom or in person? Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak, either on Zoom or flag me down on camera. Seeing no further requests to speak from the public, any further discussion from the council?
Madam President,
Counselor Knight.
I'm convinced that the best path to ensure comprehensive and informed review of our city's charter is to follow the time-tested path of gathering signatures and complying with the various provisions of the general laws that surround that process. There's some that would disagree. And to them, I say that, the charter is our local constitution, and in effect is a document that's far too important to allow an abbreviated review and to take shortcuts. The process established in the general law specifically establishing charter review is more than just a procedure. It's the right of local self-government, and the politicians shouldn't be deciding this for the people. This alone should give every resident the reason to pause and say, let's let this process unfold in its time-tested wisdom. The initiative petition process. Proper discernment is never rushed. A perfect example of this proper discernment was in November 2015, when the people of Medford spoke at the ballot box and overwhelmingly adopted the Community Preservation Act. The success of this program can be attributed to the Preserve Medford campaign. Now, this group could have came to the council and pleaded with us to take shortcuts and to put this matter on the council agenda and to put it on the ballot, to do a home rule petition and to send it forward. But instead, there was a grassroots campaign with efforts devoted to speaking to residents door to door, in the community, in the streets, at the parks, addressing concerns and issues, and raising awareness and educating the electorate about the CPA. And as a result, because people got a chance to talk, information was shared, concerns were raised, and it was time to vote, the voters were informed, aware, and knowledgeable. It was democracy at its best. Coming off a 3-year pandemic, we've not had the ability to attend our children's games or school events. Graduations and proms have been canceled. There's absolutely zero sense of normalcy. We don't have the strong relationships with the neighbors in our community that we've had prior to the pandemic, and we need to build those back up. In a time when we have no sense of normality or stability, I don't think our charter should be treated with any less care than the CPA. The residents of our city deserve every opportunity to absorb the information before the rest to decide on whether to do anything to our charter, and the initiative petition process meets this mark. I hope my position is not misunderstood, Madam President. It's an important issue, and my disagreement is not over the method, is over the method and not over the motivation, and over the process and not over the principle. But ultimately, there should be a grassroots effort that comes from the ground up, not the top down. The people shouldn't be making the decisions for the politicians. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Knight. Any further discussion? Vice President Bears. On the motion of Vice President Bears to approve as amended by Vice President Bears, seconded by Counselor Collins. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
No.
Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
No.
Counselor Scarpelli.
No.
Counselor Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes. 4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-282, offered by President Morrell. Then I'll read from the chair unless there's any objections. Whereas, as a condition of the MBTA multifamily zoning requirement passed as part of the 2021 Economic Bond Bill, the draft guidance released by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development must be discussed at a meeting of the Medford City Council before May 2nd, 2022. And whereas the public comment period of the MBTA multifamily zoning requirement is open until March 31st, 2022, be it so resolved that the Medford City Council invite Director of Planning, Development, and Sustainability, Alicia Hunt, to present MBTA draft guidance on Section 3A of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, as required by the Department of Housing and Community Development. Unless there's any discussion by the councilors, we can have Director Councilor Knight.
I do believe that this was raised, Madam President, some 24 or 36 months ago, with the question was asked to the city solicitor as to whether or not the city is in compliance with the Municipal Modernization Act and these provisions that you speak of. To date, we have not received a response from the administration. I'd just like to highlight the fact that our ability to conduct business is hampered when we are not provided with the tools in the toolbox necessary to do such. And here we are, some period of time later, now addressing an issue that we could have put to bed a very long time ago, have we been provided with the support necessary for us to conduct our business. As we look at the work that we've done this evening, when we have someone in our corner that's willing to provide us with the legal advice that we need, we are able to put out a very good work product. When we don't have that, here we are. Before May 2nd, we have to do something. We've been waiting since the Municipal Modernization Act passed for an answer as to whether or not we're in compliance. So I'd just like to point that out and once again, reiterate my priority for the budget for this year to have an assistant city solicitor dedicated to the Memphis City Council.
Thank you, Councilor. And I did err in not referencing your previous paper in this request, so I thank you for bringing this up many months ago, and hopefully Director Hunt can provide us some information.
Councilor Morel, I have a presentation to share with you. Part of the answer to this is actually the city has been waiting for the guidelines from the state to tell us whether or not we are in compliance. We needed the guidelines. Draft guidelines were released in January. The draft guidelines were not clear. They are open for comments, and that's part of my presentation this evening. If I have permission on the Zoom, I could share the slides if that's the easiest way to do it.
Sure.
And I can explain what we are looking for clarity on.
Mr. Clerk, could you allow
Mhm.
Director Hunt to share?
Is Mr. Mulkey on the call as well?
I
Or it's a zoning issue? It's a building commissioner.
do not see him.
I do not believe that he is on it. This is something that is being addressed by the planning directors and in meetings with the state. So good evening, counselors. Thank you for your time. I will try to be as brief as possible, but with as much information as we're able to provide at this time. I have the formal bill language, the draft guidance that was issued in January by the state, the timeline for when we expect to have final guidance and what the state is asking for us, the implications for the city, and then if there are any questions and comments. This page and the next slide are in fact the full text of the law. Would you like me to read this out? I know it's very hard to see.
It's available on the website.
This is available, and I'll provide these slides to all of you as well. Oops, sorry. And then, so a quick summary of it is that this bill amended Chapter 40A to include multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. It applies to 175 MBTA communities. And the goal of the legislation is to encourage multifamily housing production by requiring municipalities to have zoning districts where multifamily housing is allowed as of right. The actual production of the housing depends on many factors, and production is not required under the law, just zoning as of right. The draft guidelines that have come out state that we must, actually the law states that we must be in compliance in order to remain eligible for a variety of different grant programs from the state. That's important.
Madam
So
Director,
multifamily,
do we know how much, what the dollar figure of the grant eligibility would be on the table that we lose access to? So is it $100 million worth of grant money, or is it $65,000 a grant?
Madam President, there are about 5 to 10 different grant programs that are incorporated in this. The state named several in the law, and then the draft guidance actually included several more grant programs that would be, you would need to be in compliance with to be eligible for. And many of these are economic development grants that do not have set guidelines as to maximum amounts, but we've seen tens of millions of dollars per community could come through these grant rounds. So we think they're very valuable grants.
Have we been in receipt of them in the past?
Over the past 10 years, yes. I didn't get a complete summary, but yes, the city has done several of them. So under the law, the multifamily housing has to be permitted as right, no age restrictions, and the housing has to be suitable for children, minimum gross density of 15 units per acre, and no more than a half mile from a subway or bus station. All of this is in the law. All of this is straightforward. And our staff believe that under these specific guidelines, we're in compliance, as are many, many communities. The draft guidance then goes on to issue a test to determine what reasonable size is and what the minimum multi-unit family capacity is. So these are items that are not in the law, the language of it, but are in the guidelines that we have received from DHCD. The minimum land area must be a zone that's at least 50 acres in size, within a half mile of the acre. The minimum multifamily unit capacity is determined by the number of units. So this is where I could have put the chart in. If you are a subway community, a rapid transit is a different number than if you are a bus or if you're an adjacent community. For the subway units, it's 25% of your current units in your community. And they actually have provided us with a chart because many of the planning directors said, wait, you want us to produce 25% of our current number of units within a half mile of the T station? And so they've provided a chart, and that number for Medford would be 6,442 units. And that, honestly, that didn't make sense. Yes, would be allowed as of right within a half mile of the T under the draft guidance. So we've been talking with other planning directors, and we have been talking with staff from the state. And we basically said, I've talked with Chelsea's planning director in Cambridge and Somerville, and we've all said, we either don't understand this or it's unreasonable because this doesn't make sense. So we have been encouraged to submit comments to the state by the comment period. Because 15 units per acre, not a problem. We're probably in compliance with that number. But this number seemed to be more than anybody could really rationalize. So anyhow, that is part of the sticking point and why I've been reluctant to come forward without having further conversation with the state before discussing it, because that's just stunning. So we asked then, okay, how do we calculate this gross density? Because they also talked about the minimum 15 units. How do we determine, many of you are now very familiar with zoning, and you'll see that we don't have anything in our zoning that talks about units per acre. We talk about heights, we talk about setbacks, we talk about lot coverage. So we said to the state, how do we determine what are the guidelines? And they said, oh, we have to create those guidelines. They don't exist yet. I asked very specifically, do we look at current parcel sizes? And do we look at setbacks from parcel lines and lot coverage? And they said, please ask that in the open comment period. So when you ask me if we're currently in compliance, I'll tell you, it doesn't sound like it. And I don't think so, but there is no way to know until the state issues the final guidance. So the other thing, the one piece that is good is that they said they intend to create a tool that we could then apply to our zoning to tell us whether or not we're in compliance so that it would be standardized, but the tool doesn't exist yet. So that's a part where we have a lot of concerns. The next piece is determining suitability for families with children. That units cannot be age restricted. I think that we have no problem whatsoever with that in Medford, but they also have started to say that under the draft guidance, you cannot limit the number of occupants per unit. And that is something that I know that has been very significantly discussed by this council and by our planning board. So that is also something that we'll be putting comment in on. They did say that districts do not have to be contiguous and that they don't all have to fall within a half mile of the transit station. So that sounded hopeful that you could have some of your density within a half mile, but not all of it. But there's no guidelines as to what does that mean? What is not all? And then they will be developing compliance or criteria to determine if you're in compliance with the law, but they have not yet provided us with that. So we asked for a timeline. March 31st is the deadline for public comments. We are preparing comments. I'd be happy to take comments from the council as well. I'm also happy to provide you an email afterwards with the information on how to submit your own comments directly. By May 2nd, we have to submit a form to the state with some information about our current zoning. And on that form, we need to give the date and the minutes that we attended a public meeting and that we presented this. So this meeting right now is our compliance, such that for this coming year, we are now in compliance with the state guidelines. This summer is when they said they'll be releasing the final guidelines and that by December, they would like an action plan from us. That does not have to include exactly the zoning we're going to pass, but rather what our process is for passing the zoning. July 2023, they'll tell us if they have approved our action plan. And by December 2023, they will ask that we have adopted zoning to bring us into compliance. So we'll need to do, that's the next real deadline with action in order to stay in compliance with this new law.
Question?
Mhm.
Are they saying we have to change our zoning? Or are they saying if we don't change our zoning, you don't have access to these grant funds?
Basically, they're saying if you don't change your zoning, you won't
So we
have
don't have-
access to the grant.
In essence, we don't have to do anything.
That is correct.
Thank
There are communities that are actually discussing that, whether it is better to lose access to these grant funds than to come into compliance.
And I mean, that's what what's the trade-off? How much money are we getting from these grants? I mean, if we're not getting any money from the grants, is it really worth creating 6,500 units?
We had looked at some of that, and what we could tell you is sort of about the different grant programs. My inclination would be to not get into that right now, that we want to submit comments about our concerns, because the law is written is a perfectly reasonable law. It's the guidelines that we have significant concerns with. So my inclination is to submit comments and then to see what the guidelines are that come out over the summer. And at that time, to make a decision whether the final version, because I will tell you that I have not yet spoken to a planning director in Massachusetts who feels comfortable with these guidelines as they have come out. Not to mention the fact that they're not specific enough. We don't know exactly what we're measuring and how. So once we see the guidelines, that is an option.
Councilor Carviallo had a.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. Alicia, half a mile from the subway would pretty much regulate us to the Wellington area, correct? Unless the train station in West Medford falls into that, or the new train station up at Tufts.
Thank you for asking that. We actually had some of our GIS staff put a map. So this is a map of our zoning that's got color on it for the different zones. And
No
then
disrespect.
those circles are the
Make it a
half
little bigger
miles.
so we can see.
Yeah, you know what? That is an
My
excellent.
glasses aren't that strong enough.
Let me see. Sorry, I am using this lovely new. Actually. There we go. So, oops. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
This
So,
is not
okay, so,
PowerPoint, but I'll,
so if you go back to, so where would the purple circle be?
So the purple circle, that is the West Medford train
So
station.
that qualifies under that?
That qualifies, and I will
Okay.
tell you that most of the housing around there is single family
Right.
one and general residential.
Okay.
We haven't straight up asked whether the Green Line stations will count, but frankly, they're supposed to open this summer. So we absolutely assume, why wouldn't they count? They will be open train stations at that point. And so looking at those areas,
And
there
that-
are
and that's
some
pretty, that's a pretty
potential.
dense area.
It is relatively dense, but interestingly enough, a lot of the zoning is single family two and general residential. So what we have there now is stuff that is non-conforming, that is higher density. The Wellington train station area is actually an interesting area to look at because there is Stations Landing, for example, is in there already. And there are other areas that housing is not allowed as of right, multifamily, but honestly, we should really consider it because there is a lot of multifamily housing in that area already.
And there's room, there is some room up there.
There is absolutely room.
Yeah.
So it's there, I mean, there's potential here, but the part of the question is in the details.
Point of information. Does it have to be within a half a mile from a train station located in your community or just the train station?
So if you are a community that has one of these in your community, then yes. We
Because-
haven't, that's actually, because if you're getting at the Oak Grove stations and
Well,
stuff,
what I'm saying is, I mean, if say it's
Well,
if it's
the
6,500
most, right?
units, right, it has to be within half a mile of a station, right? And
Yeah.
These are the only circles that we have, but we have Winchester Station, you have Oak Grove Station, you have Ball Square Station. You might be able to take those 6,500 units instead of slapping them right in Wellington Circle, which is probably where they're gonna end up going, be able to spread them around.
And that is something that we'll make a note of and ask for specific clarification of. I know that Cambridge was specifically saying to us that if they could spread the number of units they're being asked to allow as of right across all of the train stations in Cambridge, it's not so onerous.
Because I mean, I think the idea is that most of these stations, like the Green Line, for example, it's not Medford's train, it's a regional.
Right.
It's for the region, right?
Right.
So why should Medford bear the brunt of all the housing? Why shouldn't the region? If
Right.
the train station is there for transportation needs for the region, and
Yeah.
we're trying to meet housing needs for the region, then why shouldn't our regional partners that utilize this service that we have also feel some of the impact?
Absolutely. So and I will say Cambridge, Somerville, Malden, Winchester all have stations, so they're all subject to this 25% number. If you have buses and some of the further out, because there are 175 communities, they have lower percentages, 15% and 10% for the less than further out communities. But this is one of the questions of clarity that we'll be asking, and how do we distribute this? And honestly, this 6,500 units as of right is a little surprising. Like it's high. I'm all for housing and I'm all for, but that's not just a little, that's really changing the nature of the community. So, yes.
Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. The 6,500 would include current units within the radii.
So that's the other clarity that we're asking for, that it's not whether it's new units or units allowed as of right. And the one thing that we did ask them, we said to them, none of us have big open spaces that are undeveloped.
Right.
And they said, no, we expect that it would involve you allowing them so that if somebody were to buy these properties, they could then develop this density of units.
And I'm sure if you haven't gotten there yet, that's fine. But would say triple deckers versus two families meet the per acre requirement instead of moving to 5, 6, 7-story buildings?
If you were looking at 15 units per acre,
Yeah,
the triple deckers and stuff, they would.
okay.
If we're looking at 30 and 40 units, 50 units per acre, and
Yeah.
it sort of depends, how big? Is it a 50-acre zone? Or are we able to spread it across all of this? It's a lot more acres than maybe we're talking 20 units per acre, 30. And honestly, these are not numbers that planners usually use to look at. We looked at floor area ratios and heights and setbacks.
Right.
So we're all trying to get our heads around, what does this mean? It's not a measurement that you usually use to describe zoning.
Right. Because I would think that would be a good tool in our toolbox,
Mhm.
compared to say knocking down a bunch of two families and building an 8-story, whatever, or, whatever that would look like. Third question, just looking at Wellington, there's a lot of water in
Mhm.
that half mile. How would that affect this minimum land area calculation?
So that's a good question, and one that we're submitting. In the form that we have to fill out, it talks about what are the acreage within a half mile of your train station that is non-buildable, and they
Yeah.
say specifically such as water.
Yeah.
And so we know we have to provide them back with that information in May, but we don't actually know how they're going to take it into account because it's not explained in their guidelines.
Right. And just the Ball Square station is technically in Medford, right?
It is actually, yes.
Yeah. And then just, I know it's right there on the corner of a corner, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that, but just to say that this did not go through the legislative process. If anyone was following it when this passed at the end of 2020, this was snuck in at the end of December with a bunch of other stuff that a year before, one representative was able to stop because they tried to pass it in an informal session and someone stood up and said, well, hold on a minute. If you're going to do this, you need to give us these tools that allow us to protect people who are here and avoid displacement. And that never happened. And the negotiations were never filled. And, I think we're suffering from that. It seems like DHCD is, this was Governor Baker's proposal. It's Governor Baker's housing department. And he's really pushing the envelope here, it seems to me. So I'm frustrated with this as I was frustrated when they passed this 15 months ago. Thank you.
Councilor Carviallo, then Councilor Collins.
Thank you. Alicia, would the air rights at Wellington be included in this?
We could certainly we don't see why we wouldn't be able to include that. Yes. And I will say that we we don't know, like, so we're not being told we have to build the housing. We don't have to design the housing. We just have to allow it to be built as of right. So what exactly does that mean? And we're, like I said, we're still trying to figure that out.
Counselor Collins?
Thank you. Alicia, thank you so much for this very helpful, thorough presentation. I have just two clarifying questions to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So looking at this map, to become eligible for these grants, we would need to create zoning that would allow within each of these circles for, say, 6,400 units of single-family housing to be built within each circle. Is that my understanding of that?
That was our original read of the draft guidelines. When we asked DHCD staff that specifically last week, they said, no, it could be spread further out. Portions of it had to be within a half mile of your train stations. And because because I looked at them and I said, 6,500 units within a half mile of the train station it's a lot. And she's like, oh, no, you wouldn't have to do that. It could be spread out. And I said, that's not how we're reading your draft guidelines. And her response was, please submit a comment stating that. So I will be writing that one up.
Great, thank you. And that gets at my second question, which is, we have these radii here, but you also said the districts don't have to be contiguous. So it sounds as though that gets us the confusion that you just mentioned, which is it's not necessarily clear that all of that as of right housing has to be encompassed within
Right.
that circle, but maybe start there. And so, of course, that's something I'd also
That's
appreciate clarity
part
on
of-
when it exists.
Right. And that's part of what we're trying to understand. And we're trying to ask them, we are asking them for clarity on that. They have indicated that, and I think in the guidelines, it does say that it has to be partially within, but it's not completely clear how much within, and then how far do you go? Because, for example, if you allowed as of right development throughout our entire community, now this number is not sounding crazy. Not to say that it is crazy, but it is. But what does that look like? And then how do you measure that? Because if you asked us how much housing is allowed as of right now in the city of Medford, that's not a number that we know, or even how we would calculate that. Because then we would say, well, do we respect all the parcel lines and ownership lines of current parcels? Do we incorporate setbacks? Like how would you actually calculate that right now? And so we're waiting for that guidelines to understand.
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Alicia, if I could ask just two questions. So forgive me, is there any affordability reference in this? So in theory,
No.
I think to Vice President Bear's point, this legislation, essentially, a developer could buy up entire neighborhoods of 2 and 3 families. They all get kicked out, or they sell their property, and now we have hyper-dense luxury housing in place, in theory?
So we do believe, and it is something that we should request clarity, that anybody who has inclusionary housing requirements would still apply. There's no reason, there is nothing in here, and they have stated verbally that yes, your inclusionary housing guidelines and ordinances would still apply. This isn't negating those. So you would look at those numbers for Medford, but this is not requiring that any of it be affordable. And actually for communities that don't have inclusionary housing, it does not require that any affordable housing get built at all.
Yeah, I think I share a number of my counselors' concerns, and just also the Vice President Bears. I mean, this may, if this were to go through, we were to opt in, do exactly the opposite of what it's intended, and to displace more residents and have a city of luxury housing.
Absolutely.
Nothing else. Awesome. Oh, is there any, or could there be a comment on the fact that, they're dangling this grant money? If a city were to opt in, do they have to opt in at first bite, or could, they wait and see what this money actually is, and in 2 years say we want to opt into this program, perhaps when they figured out what it is?
It's our understanding that you need to do it to be in compliance. Therefore, at any time, a community could come into compliance with a regulation. I do agree that might be something we should ask for further clarity on. And we will frankly, because of the basis of being at this meeting tonight, we will be in compliance because we will submit that form by May 2nd. Therefore, we are in compliance through December of 2023 right now. The question then is past that point. So we actually do, as a city, have plenty of time to then look at the rules as they come out, look at the programs. I will tell you that it is our intention this year to apply to some of those grant programs. There's, some of you may have heard of the One Stop Grant Program. It's all encompassing. That is part of this. And we actually have submitted letters of interest to that program this year.
Further discussion, Counselor Knight?
The city's ability to apply for grants, would it also impact our housing authority's ability to apply for grants?
Off the top of my head, I do not know if these are grant programs that they could apply to. I haven't looked at that.
And, you know, I don't think Tufts University's property would be taken into consideration, right, at all for the density?
They do ask us on that form about institutional ownership of property within the circle, because it is actually an interesting question. Tufts University is currently zoned at apartment 2. The difference is it has to be suitable for multifamily. And if they build housing, as a rule, it's dormitory, it's age restricted. So as much as we would love to see more dorms, take students out of the apartments in Medford and free up housing for families, that wouldn't, it is our understanding that that would not comply, would not count.
Alicia, if the city were to accept one of the grants, what are we on the hook for? What is that? What do we have to do if we took the money?
In terms of then, do we have to, it is my understanding, and I would want to sort of check the rules. And so to be clear, the state law that passed is the only thing that's legally in effect. They're the guidelines now, and those are subject to change. It implies that if we were to get a grant now, you have to be in compliance to receive the grant. But once you've been given the grant, then one would assume you don't have to stay in compliance. So if we had a grant that went through 2024.
What would we use the grant for?
I'm looking at you because a lot of the grants are economic development grants. So some of the things, are you able to speak to that? So this is Victor Schrader, our economic development director.
Yeah, good evening, 55 Cedar Street. The MassWorks grant program is mostly for infrastructure, pre-development. I think at one time Medford considered MassWorks for the Governor's Ave garage. That's one of the grant programs. Some of the others are for transportation planning, economic development studies, planning exercises. So that's actually what we've submitted through the One Stop program for this year, is some funding for planning, economic development related planning.
Thank you.
Alicia, I know you had a few slides left. I don't know.
That was actually, the last slide was the map there, and there was just, I think that was truly it. Yeah.
Any further discussion from the council? Any members of the public would like to speak? Seeing none. Councilor Collins.
I just wanted to thank Director Hunt for coming before us and explaining all of this. And as you said, if you could follow up with these slides and how to submit comments, I think that'd be really appreciated. But thank you again.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. I realize that you wanted this information sooner. I've been very uncomfortable with presenting something that I don't know all the rules on, but now it makes more sense. Present to you to stay in compliance, to submit public comments, to hear your concerns. And then it's my expectation that we'll discuss this again once the final guidelines are out and we understand what this really, really means for the city. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Alicia. Will the council receive a copy of the MBTA community information form that's submitted?
We're happy to provide you with a copy of that. We'll figure out how we should save a copy of it. It's an online form, so I'm not sure if it'll be in screenshots or what, but we do have a PDF copy to review the questions. So yeah, we'll work on that. Thank you.
Motion to receive and place on file.
On the motion of Vice President Barris to receive and place on file, seconded by Counselor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-283, offered by Counselor Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council requests an update from the city administration and Tufts University relative to the March 15, 2022 chemical laboratory evacuation at 62 Talbot Street. Counselor Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much. Yes, just last Tuesday, there was a chemical spill, I believe, or an evacuation at the chemical laboratory at 62 Talbot Street. That's about all the information I've been able to find out about this. I'm sure that it was an event that was handled appropriately by our first responders and by our friends at Tufts University, but it's nice for us to know exactly what happened, what went on. So be sure that we can provide a sense of relief to those that live in the neighborhood who are asking questions and have concerns about what they live next to and what risks they may pose to them. So with that being said, I'd ask the administration to respond to this, and Tufts University to respond to this request in a timely manner, and ask my council colleagues to support the measure.
Thank you, Counselor Knight. Any further discussion? On the motion of Counselor Knight, seconded by Vice President Barris. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-284, offered by Counselor Carviallo. Sure. Moving forward to 22-285, offered by Counselor Carviallo. Be it so resolved that Counselor Carviallo update the council on the library foundation and the library. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. Is Barbara Kerr on the call?
I did see her earlier.
Is she still there? Let me make sure
Yes.
she's there.
Yep.
I just want to give it a little brief report. As the library, as the foundation, the fundraising end is pretty much it's coming to the end. Just want to give a little report of how much has been collected up to date. So far in total donations, we've collected, we've raised $5,846,11 in donations. We've had $324,000 in-kind donations, both from East Cambridge Savings and the Cummings properties. So in total, the foundation up to today has raised $6,170,011, of which $3.5 million has already gone to the city toward the construction costs. And anyone who's had a chance to go by there has seen the great work that's been done in there. And at our meeting last week, Barbara said close to 10,000 people have gone into that library since it's opened in that short of time. So I just want to thank everybody.
More than that.
More than that.
More than that.
I just want to thank all the benefactors that the community that that have reached out with the donations. And we are still collecting things, but we are sort of it's going to be winding down at some point. But just wanted to give everybody a little sorry, and I invited Barbara to just give everybody a little update of what's happening inside the building.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Thank you for your work on that. Barbara Kerr, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Barbara Kerr, 35 Baker Place in Newton. We're doing really well. I think, as you know, it's been kind of chaotic for, oh, good heavens, I'm on a screen. Sorry, it's been very chaotic, but this last week was the first time I felt like we had actually finally moved in. We did have some shelving shortages, but most of it came last month. And as of today, the public areas are pretty much up and running regular, the way we're supposed to be. And it wasn't 10,000 people. We've had a lot more than 10,000 people. Our circulation in February was 9,000 items above what the circulation was in November at Boston Avenue. And I looked, and it's 6,000 above the average month in FY19 when we were back in the old building. So it went up 4,000 items in February, another 4,000 4,000 in June, in January, another 5 in February. And we're still going. It's people are beginning to discover us and the weather's nice and the building is working the way it's supposed to. Children's and teen are crazy busy and scary kind of, but, and the downstairs is quiet. And we had designed the place for all sorts of different kinds of seating and tables and computer areas, and people are using them the way we wanted them to. And this month we've started a pretty full schedule of programs, and we have more than one program room now, so you can have 5 programs at the same time. So it's going very well. It really is. If you haven't been down since January, come down, because now it looks a lot better than it did when we had green bookcases and everything was all over the place. But it's really, I'm very pleased with where we are right now. So please come and see us if you haven't been down recently.
Thank you, Barbara. And for all the naysayers who said libraries are irrelevant, no one uses anymore, it doesn't use it anymore. This is pretty much the fact that people do use libraries and they are relevant. Thank you, Barbara.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Any further discussion? On the motion of Counselor Knight to receive and place on file, second by Vice President Bears, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo. Yes. Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-286, communications from the mayor to the Honorable President, members of the Medford City Council. Dear President Morrell and members of the Medford City Council, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body confirm the appointment of Robert Delfano of 46 Hume Ave to the License Commission to a term to expire June 1st, 2028. Robert will be present via Zoom, and a copy of Robert's resume and appointment letter are attached. Thank you for your kind attention to this matter. Sincerely, Brianna Lindo, Mayor. I do believe we have Mr. Delfano on the call, and I don't know if any counselors have any discussion before we hear from him. Sure. Mr. Delfano, we already have your name and address, so if you could just share, get a brief synopsis of your resume and work in this area.
Yes, good evening. My name is Robert Delfano. I reside at 46 Hume Avenue in Medford, Mass.
Thank you. Could you speak to your resume a little bit with regards to this position?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I'm having a little difficult time hearing you, Madam President. I'm sorry. Yes, in regards to my resume, I recently retired from the fire department a couple of years ago, and I was on the department for 36 years. And prior to that, I worked for Charles Gilman and Son, which was a liquor wholesaler in actually Medford, Mass. And I was a sales representative with the greater Boston area as my territory. So I'm familiar with a lot of the ABCC rules and regulations, but again, that was quite a few years ago. But I feel as though I'd be an asset to the commission. I should be able to help out, and I know one of the commissioners is retiring, so I had applied for the position.
Thank you, Mr. Delfano. Any discussion from the council? Dr. Knight.
Madam President, thank you very much. And Mr. Delfano, thank you, number one, for your service to the city of Medford. It's people like you that make the city go round. So thank you very much for putting your life on the line for the residents of this community. I certainly, as one member of this council, don't have much of an opinion one way or the other relative to Mr. Delfano's appointment to this position. I think that, he has a resume that would enable him to meet the basic criteria of the job, and I think that he'd be able to do a good job at it. He has shown us through his history as a firefighter that he knows how to serve the public. My issue isn't necessarily with this appointment at all, Madam President. My issue is the fact that right now we're in the middle of state election cycle. And we have candidates that are in the process of trying to get their nomination papers certified, but we do not have a board of registrars in our elections office to certify these papers. So while I understand the importance of a liquor commissioner here in this community, I don't think that that carries the same weight as a registrar of voters here in our community. And I think that the mayor needs to act on these appointments that are necessary for us to comply with state law so that we can conduct our state elections that are coming up. And so the candidates that are participating in these state elections can have the opportunity to get their paperwork certified. Now, all three of our registrars have stepped down in the past 12 months. We have no registrars of voters. Now we have a liquor commission that's retiring as well, and an appointment that's backfilling that. And I'm going to support Mr. Delfano when the time comes. I certainly have no problem with his application before us this evening. However, I do have a problem filling appointments when we have a big void down in our elections office, and we have a major state election coming up right now, and we need a board of registrars down there. We have legislation pending in the city solicitor's office that we've been waiting on from the administration now, and I'm sure Councilor Bears can talk a little bit more to that than I. We've met on it. We've had a committee of the whole on it. It's something that we all support in establishing an elections commission. So those are a couple items that I think are very important that should be taking precedent over some of these appointments that are coming before us, Madam President. Mr. Delfano, like I said, this is nothing to do about your appointment or your ability to do this job. It really has to do with the administration and the approach they're taking in addressing some of these issues. We're looking at a board of registrars that's been vacant now for how long, Mr. Clerk? Can you tell me how long Mr. Lasky and Ms. Murray, I think, left?
The former chair, Ms. Murray, resigned on about the 11th, but we didn't receive the resignation letter until October. And I'm talking about the 11th of September.
Yeah.
We received Mr. Lasky's, General Lasky's resignation on the day of the September preliminary election after the polls had opened.
And then Mr. Wade?
Mr. Wade was January because of illness, and he's moving out of Medford.
Okay.
And the mayor temporarily appointed Mark Crowley to take General Lasky's unexpired term.
Okay, and when was this appointment made temporarily?
That was made late October, right before the November election.
And is this temporary appointment allow us to comply with the Secretary of State's guidelines and standards?
That brings Registrar Wade was still on the board of registrars at that point. So there was a quorum which allowed the November election to be conducted. Now there is no longer a quorum now that Mr. Wade has resigned.
And Mr. Crowley still serves as a temporary appointee?
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Councilor.
he's actually the chair of the board.
Motion
Chair
to
himself,
accept the
there's only one
appointment.
person on the board.
Well, I'm still sitting ex officio.
Madam President,
Vice President Barris.
thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate Councilor Knight's points. And again, Mr. Delfano, my comments here are not reflective of your appointment, but I do think when an appointment, this was advertised as an urgent appointment. It was advertised as important. I didn't see similar advertising for the Board of Registrars, first of all. But secondly, in general, I don't think that appointees should be coming here and justifying their own appointments to this council. I think it should be the process of the city of Medford and the mayor's administration to come before this council and present an appointee, to answer questions on behalf of that appointee, and then allow the appointee to speak on their own behalf and answer questions as well. But there are a number of appointments. I just think the process here on a number of appointments, both why are things sitting vacant so long? What is the appointment process in general? This council doesn't have the authority to confirm many appointments. The ones that it does have the authority to confirm are some of the most important appointments to boards and commissions in this city. And I just think that the process needs to be improved. I certainly wouldn't mind, beyond the administration coming here and presenting the appointments themselves, presenting the rationale as to why they appointed this person, the applications of the people who applied for the position and why they chose this eventual appointee. I just think there's a lot of transparency in the process that could be brought to this council, brought before the council, especially given the fact that we don't approve every single appointment to boards and commissions. But especially when it comes to the Board of Registrars and the fact that, we're having such delay there. I would move to table this until we receive further appointments as are so urgently needed in this community. And again, Mr. Delfano, this is not reflective of you. It's just reflective of where we are right now in terms of appointments to boards and commissions in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Councilor Carviallo, did you want to speak?
Well, I was going to, motion for his appointment. And I do respect Councilor Bears' his comments there, but I'd hate to hold this up for that. So, I mean, if that's the will of the party, that's fine. But again, if we let this sit and then we leave another commission open, so, yeah. And as I sympathize and I agree 100%. The Board of Registrars is a very important thing, and that should have been done also. That should be done too. I don't know what we're waiting for that.
I would be happy to amend my motion to table for 1 week just to get a response from the
I
administration.
don't care,
The motion to table is
Yeah,
debatable.
Mr. Delfano's good. He's a good person. He's a good volunteer in the community. And again, Bobby, it's no reflection on you. I know you and your family for many, many years, and you're good people, and then, and we will,
So
we
the
will
motion to
support you.
table isn't debatable, but I do see Chief of Staff Nazarian has her hand up.
I'll withdraw the motion temporarily to hear
Okay.
from the Chief of Staff.
Vice President Barris, Chief of Staff Nina Nazarian.
Thank you very much, President Morrell and members of the City Council. I am happy to look into the points that have been made this evening regarding appointments and the Registrar of Voters in particular. I would propose that the City Council, given especially the fact that Bobby Delfano is here this evening, has spent the time, propose the fact that the body move to approve or confirm the appointment of Bobby Delfano. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Nazarian. Vice President Barris.
Is there a more significant commitment that the Chief of Staff could make relative to a timeline for when registrars will be appointed? Other than that, would it be looked into? Madam President?
Madam President?
Go ahead.
Thank you. At this point in time, I would like to look further into it. I don't want to make commitments that I can't keep. It's frankly that one of the resignations is a little bit new to me, but allow me please some opportunity. I'd be happy to write to the City Council this week with further information once I've had an opportunity to look into it.
On that, Madam President, I do believe, looking at the general laws, that I think these appointments to the Board of Registrars are supposed to come through the City Council as well and be appointed by the City Council for confirmation. So I'm not sure that the mayor has the right to appoint Mark Crowley to the Board of Registrars without confirmation. Temporary or not.
I would agree.
So have I talked about the need for this council to have a lawyer by any chance? Have I spoke about that at all ever? Because I mean, the left hand doesn't know what the right's doing, and no one can scratch the head across the hall. All right, I don't know what's going on. But I mean, ultimately, I'm looking at the general law right here, and in the first section, it says, the position shall be filled nearly as reasonably as possible, and it shall be confirmed by the council. Unless that charter says something different, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss for the inaction on easy items that keep us in compliance with state law. Easy items that keep us in compliance with state law. Now, Bob, I'm going to vote for you. I'm going to vote for you. I support your resume. I support your resume. I support your appointment. However, I don't support the antics and the human resource nightmare that we have going on across the hall.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. The clerk has offered he can provide some clarification.
Council, I'd like to clarify a little bit on what you had asked.
Mr. Clerk, with all due respect, I don't think it's your job to clarify the actions of the administration. I appreciate what you're trying to do. I really do. My frustration level on this is like going through the roof because, we all take an oath to comply with the law, to withhold the laws of the Commonwealth, the Constitution, the ordinances of the city. And I feel like it only applies when someone's looking. Sometimes it only applies when someone's looking. If no one points it out, it's just going to continue. It's just going to continue. It's just going to continue. And it's very frustrating. But please continue. I do apologize for interrupting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I understand what you're saying. Back when General Lasky and former Chair Murray resigned, we actually did meet with the city solicitor and we spoke with representatives of the Secretary of State's office to make sure that we could get temporary registrars in place so that we could have quorum. And both offices, the city solicitor and Secretary of State's office, said temporary appointments can be made as long as they're, I mean, a permanent appointment would absolutely require council confirmation. I mean, that was made very clear to us on both sides. But a temporary or emergency appointment would not require confirmation. And the reason there is a difference there is because there is a definite there's a definite expiration of the term, which the term would expire on the confirmation of the successor.
It's curious also that it just so happened to be like right before an election and, you know, we're just finding out now, right? The chief of staff is just finding out now about a resignation of a member. Now, but it was in November, right before the election, right? And it was an appointment that was made temporary. And that person's still never been before the council, made permanent, and it's been well over 90 days.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. Vice President Barris.
I would motion to table for 1 week. And I would hope that the long awaited issues, both around the Elections Commission and the potential appointment of a registrar, would be on our agenda next week. Thank you. So motion to table for 1 week.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Councilor Carviallo.
Thank you. Along with the, this opening and the other ones, many people have reached out to me about boards and commissions that are holdovers for a while, and they're saying that they've tried to contact the administration on whether they want them to continue on. Yes, you want me to stay? No, you don't want me to stay. And, and they're not getting any feedback, either way. So, and they're just to say, if you look at the list, there's many holdovers on many important commissions. So
Thank you,
again,
Councilor
that's something that I don't know why people aren't getting back. If you want to replace them, replace them. If you don't, then ask them to stay on.
Thank you. On the motion of Vice President Barris to table for 1 week, and what's the additional language? On the motion of Vice
Let me
President
I
Barris
didn't
to
have
table
my
for 1
microphone on.
week.
I didn't have my microphone on but my answer to the president's question was there's no additional amendment to the paper other than tabling for 1 week. Other than that, I would hope that papers to address these concerns would appear on the council agenda next week. Thank you.
On the motion of Vice President Barris to table the appointment for 1 week, seconded by
Second.
Councilor Collins. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Councilor Carviallo. Yes. Councilor Collins.
Yes.
Councilor Knight.
No.
Councilor Scarpelli. Councilor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The appointment request is tabled for 1 week. Thank you, Mr. Delafano. I think we can work through the chief of staff or the administration. You came out tonight. Hopefully they can speak on your behalf next week if needed. But of course, if you want to come back, come on back.
As one member, I wouldn't require Mr. Delfano to come back. I don't think this is an issue about him. I think it's more an issue about what's going on across the hall. That's why I voted not to table, because I don't feel as though he should be held victim for his boss's mistakes. But with that being said, I'm satisfied for him to not have to return. That's my colleagues are.
I would agree. Mr. Delafano, if you didn't catch that, yeah, don't feel like you don't have to come back next week. We've heard from you. This is more of an issue with the administration, nothing to do with you. So thank you for taking the time tonight.
Well, I thank you tonight for your consideration, and I understand.
Thank you. 22-287. To the Honorable President and members of the Medford City Council regarding food truck permitting. Dear President Morrell and members of the Medford City Council, on behalf of the below entity, I respectfully submit to the Medford City Council the following request for a food truck permit in the city of Medford. In addition to City Council approval, vendors are required to adhere to Health Department food safety requirements. The Sausage Guide, dates and times, April 30th, 2022 at 7 p.m., May 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m., May 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m., June 17th, 2022 at 7 p.m., July 2nd, 2022 at 7 p.m., July 23rd, 2022 at 1 p.m. Location, Hormel Stadium. Event, Boston Glory Ultimate Frisbee Season. Thank you for your kind attention to this matter. Sincerely, Brown Lingo Curran, Mayor.
Madam President, move approval.
Pending approval of the Hormel Commission?
I'm sorry.
Move approval pending
Pending, okay.
commission
On
Home
the
Health
motion
Commission
of
approval.
Counselor Scarpelli to approve pending approval of the Hormel Commission, seconded by Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears is the second.
Yes.
Is that correct? Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes.
Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh. Counselor Singh.
We lose.
Yes.
Thank you. President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. Returning to 22-284, offered by Counselor Carviallo. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council send its deepest and sincere condolences to the family of Dolores Carroll on her recent passing. Mrs. Carroll was the wife of the founder of Carroll's Restaurant. She was a longtime benefactor for many community charities and organizations. Her presence in our community will be missed. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. For those you know, Mrs. Carroll is, the matriarch of the Carroll's family. Many years, a wonderful woman. She's been involved in many charities and organizations for other community in her lifetime, and she passed away this past week. And just want to condolences to her family for all her work that she's done over the years.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Any further discussion? Counselor Knight.
If I may, to the Carroll family, my deepest condolences. I know Mariano, Tommy, and Leslie and Jill, and one thing you can always say is that Mrs. Carroll and the Carroll family have always been involved in the community. They've always been people that have been giving to the city of Medford, and she's in a better place now. I wish her family all the best as she rests in peace.
Thank you, Counselor Knight. Counselor Scarpelli.
Again, thank you. I reiterate what my colleagues have already said, but again, when we talk about the members of our community that have given so much and now have left us. And for one, Mrs. Carroll has handed those traits off to her children, and Omari is always the first one to step up when the city's in need. I remember the process when the food truck at the fundraiser for the Andrews School backed out. Maury quickly jumped in and offered a fundraiser for the children of the Andrews right away. And that's typical for what the Carroll family has done for years. And she will definitely be missed, and we send our condolences. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Scarpelli. Further discussion? On the motion of Counselor Carviallo, seconded by Counselor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo. Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. Do I have a motion to take papers in the hands of the clerk?
So moved.
From the motion of Counselor Carviallo, seconded by Counselor Scarpelli, to take papers in the hands of the clerk. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes.
Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-288, offered by Counselor Carviallo. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council sends its deepest and sincere condolences to the family of Carol Sharpton on her recent passing. Mrs. Sharpton was a former member of the Medford School Committee and active member of the West Medford Community Center. Her presence in our community will be missed. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. This was a tough week in the city of Medford for many people passed away. Carol Sharpton was an icon in the West Medford community, the West Medford Community Center. She served on our school committee for a time. And again, as Councilor Scarpelli has mentioned many times, these are people that made our community great, and and help bring us to where we are today. And we don't see people stepping up to fill the shoes of the Carol Sharptons or the Mrs. Carrolls and other names. And again, these are people, they're icons in the community, and they've done so much good work. But Mrs. Sharpton She was a good woman, always involved with the West Suffolk Community Center. And again, she's another person that'll be missed in our community, and condolences go to her family.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Any further discussion? On the motion of Counselor Carviallo, seconded by Vice President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes.
Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-290, offered by Counselor Carviallo, be it so resolved that the Medford City Council send its, oops, I skipped one, sorry. Going back, 22-289, offered by Counselor Carviallo, be it so resolved that the Medford City Council send its deepest and sincere condolences on the family of James Shenna Jr. on his recent passing. Mr. Shenna was a longtime owner of Tough Square Tobacco in South Medford. His presence in our community will be missed. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, Jim Shen is, a longtime business owner in our community, owned a store in Medford and a store in Boston. His Tough Square Tobacco it's been a long time meeting spot for a lot of people, in the mornings for coffee and cigars and things like that. Again, the Shenna family has been around a long time in Medford. Again, they've stepped up to do many things. Again, condolences on his passing.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Any further discussion? Counselor Knight.
Yes, Counselor Carviallo, thanks for putting this measure on. Linda and Jim were both great people. Growing up, having a lot of friends that lived down near Tufts Park and Tough Square Tobacco, that was always a place where kids could go to find work. And I have a number of friends of mine that going through elementary school, junior high school, and high school would be over there doing side jobs at Tough Square Tobacco for Jim and Linda. Two of my close friends actually ended up becoming employees there through high school, working at the East Boston store, selling cigars. They became cigar aficionados, working with Jim Shenna. But they're great people, and they're real neighborhood people that took care of the kid next door that would be sitting on the front porch and watching the kids play in the street, making sure that nobody was causing any damage to the neighborhood, no one was bothering the kids. Real neighborhood people, real good folks. And he's going to be sadly missed. His presence in the neighborhood's going to be sadly missed. Post Street won't be the same.
Thank you, Counselor Knight. Any further discussion? On a motion of Counselor Carviallo, seconded by Counselor Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes.
Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli. Counselor Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-290, offered by Counselor Carviallo, be it so resolved that the Medford City Council send its deepest and sincere condolences to the family of William Casey on his recent passing. Mr. Casey was a Medford attorney and Vietnam veteran and former Commodore of the Medford Boat Club. His presence in our community will be missed. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, Bill Casey, longtime Medford attorney, the dad of policeman Joe Casey. Bill, served his time in Vietnam. Always present in the community on a lot of things. Commandant of the boat club. Just a good guy and community volunteer. Again, it's been a tough week in the city of Medford. A lot of people have passed away this week. All good people, and again, condolences to the Casey family.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Any further discussion?
Just if I may add my condolences to the Casey family. Joe's become a friend over the years, and although I didn't know Mr. Casey personally, his reputation preceded him. He was a man that was well respected in the community, and if his children are any indication of what type of a person he was, then he was a great gentleman as well.
Thank you, Counselor Knight. Counselor Scarpelli.
Thank you again, Madam President. Thank you for Counselor Carviallo for bringing these forward. Mr. Casey, another strong member of our community. I know that he raised a great son in Joey that now gives his life and his profession as the Medford police officer, and he will be missed in our community. So send his deepest condolences.
Thank you, Counselor Scarpelli. On the motion of Counselor Carviallo, seconded by
Second.
Vice President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo. Yes. Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight. Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. Please rise for a moment of silence. Reports of committees, 22-058, Subcommittee of the Whole on Public Health and Community Safety, March 16, 2022. Report to follow. Chair of that subcommittee is Councilor Collins. Councilor Collins, provide us a brief overview.
Thank you, President Morrell. Last week, myself, Councilor Carviallo, Councilor Sang, along with Police Chief Buckley, members of Medford People Power, some folks they've been working with at the ACLU, and Attorney Austin from KP Law met to discuss the proposed community control over public surveillance ordinance. We had a very productive first discussion, and I look forward to further meetings of the subcommittee to continue going over questions and concerns related to the ordinance.
Thank you, Councilor Collins. On the motion of Councilor Collins to approve, seconded by Councilor Carviallo, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears. Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Sang. Council Sang.
His box is highlighted.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-073, Committee of the Whole meeting, March 16, 2022. This was a meeting to discuss the Charter Review Commission that came before us tonight. Do I have a motion on the floor? On the motion of Vice President Bears to approve the committee report, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears. Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Sang. Council Sang.
Oh, no, he's
He was
not.
trying to say yes, but it looks like the internet hates him
No,
today.
he's not.
All right.
Oh, he's back again.
Okay, I don't know. I will count him as temporarily absent.
Okay.
President Morrell.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 temporarily absent, the motion passes. Public participation. Are there any members of the public in the chambers or on Zoom who would like to speak for public participation? Please raise your hand or come to the podium. Any members of the public who wish to speak? Okay. Seeing and hearing none. First, records. The records of the meeting of March 15, 2022 were passed to Vice President Bears. Vice President Bears, how did you find them?
If I may ask before that, have we received any updates on the reports that we requested? In reports due, did we receive any updates from?
I have not, but I had not as of the last time I checked, but that may have changed in the last couple of days. I will check again first thing in the morning.
Great. It would be, if you could maybe send out another reminder, if we could
Mhm.
maybe try to have those by next week, and then
Yep.
we can, thank you. In terms of the records of March 15th, I found them in order and I move approval.
On the motion of Vice President Bears to approve the records, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Sang.
Yes.
President
The next
Morrell.
one that matters. Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. On the motion of Councilor Knight to adjourn, seconded by Vice President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the meeting is adjourned.